The Mk5 Volkswagen Golf. What do you think when you think of the Mk5 Volkswagen Golf? The GTI, obviously, one of the best GTIs they made. But what about the GTD? We're going to find out later in this review. Originally released in 2003, 2004, and it was a replacement for the obvious Mark IV. The thing is that the Mark V had a bit of a tough job on its hand, because by that point, although the car was good, it morphed into a decent family car, the GTI was just, well, rubbish. It just wasn't as good as the predecessors. So they had a big job to do. Now, don't get me wrong, as we all know, the Mark V GTI succeeded the Mark IV GTI significantly. It's one of the best GTIs alongside the Mark 1 and 2, of course. But that's the GTIs. This is slightly different. This is the GTD. But in terms of the actual car itself, it did serve a production life of about 2004 to 2008. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But the fact is, it's one of those cars that was decent. I want to say decent, but has been long forgotten. And with the various emission schemes and anti-diesel programs, this has just been left by the wayside. You know, I think it's kind of a shame, really, because I think it's actually a decent vehicle. Actually, more than decent. I think it's actually a pretty good vehicle, and there's many things I want to show you about this vehicle.
Just like the white wind does, sing the song, sound like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, I said ooh. Just like the white wind does.
Now, I'm going to start off by being completely honest with you. It's not quite clear if this is a GTD or a GT Sport, but either way, it's a GT with a diesel engine, so I'm going to refer to it as a GTD. Now, this GTD was one of those cars where it was a product of its time. In the 2000s, the whole car industry went diesel crazy, and the GTI was was a victim to that. It became diesel-ified, a word I just made up. But actually, it got a reputation for being so-so. Some reviewers liked it, some didn't like it. I don't think it's that bad, and actually I think it's aged quite well. It's just a shame, really, because nobody uses diesel anymore. It's very much old hat technology. But there's a lot to like about this car. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to the Mark Vs, they're likeable cars, but there's a few foibles about them that just bother me. And I think, like most Golfs, again, my personal opinion, but like most Golfs, they're just a bit dull. Toyotas get a reputation for being dull unnecessarily, but Golfs don't get a reputation for being as dull, but they actually are. The GTD remedies that a little bit, and you can see straight from the styling it's better. There's a lot about this car to like. To me, it's a little bit controversial. It kind of marks the start of when Volkswagen was starting to cut their costs a little bit, cut their quality a little bit, and the reliability started to wane. You start to find a few issues creeping in here and there with the Mark V. And in fact, this is an example of when the 1.9 was coming to the end and the 2 litres was taking over in terms of the diesels. And unfortunately, the reliability went with those wonderful 1.9s. But ultimately, this is where I think Volkswagen did quite a good few things as well, which improved the car. For a start, I actually prefer the styling over the Mark IV. It doesn't feel massively different to the Mark IV in terms of being thin and grown up and solid. The Mark IV did a good job with that, let's be honest. But it still feels better. It feels pretty much better in every single way over the Mark IV. But the cooking models, the bottom end models, the ones that had the plastic wheel trims, you know, those ones, they're not that good. And I feel like when it comes to the German brands, when it comes to cheap, boy, they are cheap. They are stingy. At least the Japanese will give you something. The Germans just don't do that. But if you do pay a bit more money for the German cars, the more you pay, the best the car is. And this is a classic case of that. This has a lot more features on it than your standard Golf Mark V. And actually, you find that this does drive better as well. Noughties cars, you'd find that obviously the fashion by then was to have the slatted grille, like I mentioned, with the two-tone, and not just two-tone, the double-decker effect, shall we say, where the grills went straight down to the bottom. Again, Audi does it to this day, but on top of that, you had clear headlights. No longer would you have those reflective panels in the headlight, it was all clear. And by the mid-noughties, they started to give it a bit more of a design on the inside. And this one, you've got the lovely kind of slatted guttering style silver lining at the bottom of the headlights. Makes it look a bit more interesting. But actually, this particular model is unique because it's got the Volkswagen logo in the actual headlights itself. I've never really seen that on a Golf Mark V before. And on top of that, the first time I saw this was on a late 2008 Skoda Superb. So this must be one of the first cars to actually introduce brands or branding in the actual headlights itself. Now, continue over with the styling of the car. You've got the kind of gentle curves, but let's be honest, it's more bulges. Again, smooth bulges of the Mark V. It continue nicely. You've got these wonderful alloys, this magnificent alloys on this particular model. Sharp, precise, gives it a sense of urgency and a bit of sportiness, a bit of flair to it. You know, injects a little bit more interest into the Mark V, which is otherwise could be a bit on the dull side. You have the lovely, typical early noughties kind of feature with the indicators integrated into the wing mirror. And then you carry on to the side of the car. You have the rubbing strip, thankfully. I do like a good rubbing strip, me, but this is body coloured, but at least you've got something to protect the doors. But it's all smooth. There's no lines at all, just smooth panelling. But what I like about this particular car, with all Golfs, to be fair, they've always had maybe not so much the Mark I, but most Golfs, pretty much all of them, have had, gives you the effect, in fact, of being big, solid, bold, and comfortable, strong. And the way they've done it, a little trick they pulled off is by raising the belt line right the way up and having one little line at the top, just to make sure you get a nice big slab of metal. And it works perfectly in this particular model. As you can see, the belt line is right the way up here, but you've got the lovely black paneling in between the windows, gives it a sense of, I wouldn't say hunkered down as such, but it gives it a sense of sportiness, as well as obviously strength and solidity. Strength and solidity, sportiness. Good job, Volkswagen. Rear just continues that Volkswagen theme of being big and chunky, but with a bit of sporting hinting to that. I'll come back to that in a second why. But you have the blacked out rear window. Again, hint of sportiness, but the big rear, the big rump, but again, flat. Nothing too flabby, nothing too, well, ugly. But at the same time, something that kind of gives a hint of strength and solidity. You've got the lovely sculpted bumpers, smooth deck lid on the boot lid. And on top of that, you have these tail lights, which is basically an evolution of the previous tail lights. This way it's a bit more 3D looking, 3D effects on the inside. Unfortunately, gone are the gingicators, but you do have the 3D effects. Now, I've got a bit of a gripe with the tail lights in this car. I think they look okay, and they obviously look better with subsequent generations. They've improved it. If anything, this set the standard for the current style of the rear tail lights on the Golf. But it's the indicators. Okay, they got rid of the gingicators, and some could argue there is a slight gingicator there. Yeah, I guess so. But then it's not so much the lack of gingicator or the gingicator itself, it's the fact that they're ineffective. They work, of course, but with this red ring around it, when someone puts their brakes on and indicates, you can barely see the indicator at all. It's completely pointless. They could have at least separated them or made it stand out a little bit more, because a little orange circle does not stand out amongst a big red ring. Sorry, Volkswagen, it just doesn't. But for the rest of the car, the styling is good, and I love that solid black paneling at the bottom. Again, sense of strength and solidity, a hint of sportiness. Blacked out rear windows, blacked out paneling, lovely graphite colour, gives the car a bit more stance, a bit more presence, and a bit more elegance and sporting appeal. Overall, I think it's a good car, this is. This particular one was not your typical diesel engine that you got on most of the Mark Vs. Most of them came with 1.9s. This came with a 2-litre. You couldn't really exactly steal the thunder of the GTI, so this has to kind of be good, but not quite as good. And it definitely does that very well. It really does drive very well on these roads, though. Just take it around the bends. It leans a little bit, I must admit. That it's probably where the GTI would probably step in and take over. But it leans a little bit, but the torque and the power and the punchiness is excellent. So what's my verdict on this wonderful Mark V Golf GT diesel? Now, there is a few foibles, like I mentioned. It's a bit on the firm side. The seats are surprisingly uncomfortable. They're very firm, but not in a good way. Probably is an age-rated thing, though. I think this should be a really, really good car, but a few things let it down. A few things far too much let it down. So, for that reason, I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Decent car, very, very good, fairly competent, good workhorse, but just not quite the best. Definitely not a GTI, that's for sure. But a lot better than some of the more boring cooking models. Anyway, if you enjoy my content, please hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video if possible as well. It really helps me out growing this channel. Look forward to seeing you with more content. Take care now. Bye bye.